Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Kamen Rider Gavv. I just finished watching the finale a couple hours ago, and this is a season that I'm really happy it was as good as it was, especially after how bad Gotchard was. It was a really pleasant surprise. So today, here's my season review of Kamen Rider Gavv. So for my overall thoughts, Gavv is a good season with some great moments, and I really couldn't have asked for anything more after the train wreck that was Gotchard. It's a very fun season. It obviously isn't perfect. It has some problems, especially with its overlaps on two-part stories, especially in the second half. Just kind of falls off after the second arc. The villains are good in concept, but aren't executed the best. But the characters are the best they've been in a very long time. The action was completely a surprise to me with how good it was. And overall, it was just an awesome season, especially after I had no fun watching Gotchard. It felt like homework. Here, I was back to watching Tokusatsu for fun again. So that was just great. Even though it has some problems, still a very fun season, does some really great things, and I really like it for that. Now I'm going to talk about the characters, and like I said before, they're probably the best characters since Build. Shoma is still a protagonist cut from the same cloth that they've been for a very long time, a naive, energetic, quote-unquote special boy character, but he's way better than most recent characters, especially when you compare it to Hotaro from last year. He's actually likable, and his personality makes sense as he's new to this world, so it makes sense he would be excited to see all the new things. Also, his love for snacks is really wholesome as it comes to his relationship with his mother. His relationship with the Stomach family is very interesting. And the fact that he can be really cool when he needs to. He isn't interested in redeeming people who don't want to be redeemed. So the fact that he can be both really cool and still the wholesome special boy that protagonists are these days, that's really good. Hanto is a pretty good secondary writer whose personality kind of comes off as a little overbearing, a little too loud, but he's actually very diplomatic. He is a very stereotypical secondary writer in that he has a very cliche arc about hating all of the kaijin in this season, the Granutes, before realizing that not all of them are bad. But just his personality, that he's very diplomatic. He doesn't overreact to many things like Shoma being a Granute, Shoma knowing that he saw his mom die, and even when he confronts the Granute who kidnapped his mother, he all resolves it very diplomatically, which can seem kind of anticlimactic, but I would probably prefer this over him flying off the handle every second, and especially when he confronts the Granute who kidnapped his mother, undoing his entire arc just to have a fight. That would be really lame. It kind of sucks that he doesn't get much to do after Suga dies at the end of the second arc, but overall, one of the better secondary writers in recent memory. Lakia is a decent tertiary writer. I wish he was more antagonistic towards Shoma at the beginning, but it makes sense why he would join with them. I like his motivation for infiltrating Stomach Inc. from the inside, with them causing the death of his brother. But I feel like of the main three writers, he gets easily the least to do. He's kind of mostly just stuck with filler subplots most of the time, aside from the two-part episode where he gets his final form and kills Glada. Other than that, he doesn't do much. I do like his sacrifice in the end where he traps himself in the Granite world, and his overall arc about kind of just being mad towards Shoma, Hanto, and Sachika before becoming the close friend. That's very wholesome. So overall, a pretty good tertiary writer. Sachika is a very likable writer girl and is definitely the heart of the team. And some of the supporting characters like Shoma's uncle and the snack store owner are good supporting characters who flesh out the world more. So overall, a decent supporting cast. The villains are really cool in concept, but in execution are just alright. Stomach Inc. is really cool with its connection to Shoma, as all of the people are half-siblings of Shoma, and they're basically just drug dealers sending out the dark treats. And I like how they have a hierarchy with the part-timers and then the executives with the actual Stomach siblings at the top. But what I don't like about that is that it kind of leaves them with not much to do. Neil does the most, but he's mostly just like a behind-the-scenes scientist guy who dies the most anticlimactic death. Longo is basically just the final boss, and he isn't really that good of one. Glada is cool as the executioner, but again, she fights Hanto a couple times very early on, but then does nothing until the two-parter where she fights Lakia and then dies at the end of that. Jeeb is only interesting because of Sheeta, and Sheeta dies incredibly early in the season. And I felt like in the third arc, they were setting up Jeeb to be a much bigger focus than he actually ended up being. And I felt like the writers just forgot about him, because he gets bitter Gavv and all this stuff, but then does really nothing with it. And then in the finale, he's just killed by Hanto at a fight that doesn't really make any sense. Like, Jeep and Hanto have no connection. Doesn't really make any sense why they're fighting each other except to give Hanto something to do in the finale. And something that was very surprising to me is that none of them are redeemed. I thought at least one of them would be redeemed, probably Jeep, by how they set it up, but none of them are redeemed, which I think is good because especially it's coming off of last season where every single human character except one was redeemed, and all of them die in the end, which is kind of grim. Like, not even one of them is still alive, but I'm just glad that they weren't all redeemed in the end. But it is a little bit disappointing that not even one of them was redeemed. But overall, they're still fairly decent villains. The best villain easily is Suga, who's a sketchy scientist with questionable allegiances with a seemingly tragic backstory, who initially helps Hanto become a Kamen Rider and then works behind the scenes to make his own rider system and become Kamen Rider Bake. And that build up to him becoming Kamen Rider Bake was really well done, paced very well, even though the stuff with Dark Shoma I didn't care for that much. Suga just as a character is very cool, charismatic, and also intimidating scientist guy, but he was just handled really bad. He becomes Kamen Rider Bake, and then in one episode later, he's just cannon fodder for Hanto's final form, which feels completely waste of his character. Felt like he could have been Bake for at least 10 episodes after that, but he's just gone and then comes back like 20 episodes later as a zombie, which pretty much is just a glorified monster of the week, and then dies very unceremoniously after that. Felt like such a waste because he's so cool. Felt like it was building up for him to being a pretty major secondary antagonist to the Stomach family for the rest of the season, but just dies there as the bookend to Hanto's arc. And it just sucks because he was replaced by Boka Jaldak, the Granute president, who's interesting in concept, but just wasn't done well. Like, he kind of just is another character, just sits around. At least when he does start fighting in the 40s, he's very intimidating. But again, he's not even the final boss. He's replaced by Longo in the end, so that wasn't done the best. If Suga was done better, this would be a very good stable of villains, but he was just kind of wasted, even though what we did give Suga was really good. Now I'm going to talk about the story. For the first half of the season, it was very well done. It mixed the episodic Monster of the Week stuff that Kamen Rider's been known for since Double with serialized character moments in a very good way, especially around the time Lakia was introduced and we were getting closer to Suga becoming Bake. That was done really well. All the best parts of the season are in this, like Hanto and Shoma trying to figure out each other's identities. That was very funny. Obviously, Suga's in this part. Hanto confronting Shoma when he found out he was a Granute. That was pretty good. And then Hanto finding out that Shoma knew that his mother died, which was handled very well also. And what I like best about this part of the season is that Shoma's form debuts actually felt meaningful. Like last year in Gotchard, it felt like they were just debuting the forms and they really didn't have any meaning, whereas they actually gave each form Shoma got meaning to either his character or gave a unique story to it. Really except the ice cream form, which is weird. It's the mid-season form and he kind of just gets it out of nowhere. But all the other ability forms have a cool story with them, which I really like. And overall, first part definitely peaks, especially when Suga becomes Bake. That's when the season hit its highest moment. Everything after the second arc, so pretty much everything post Suga's death, kind of just slowly went downhill from there. Wasn't ever terrible, but definitely was never as good as what came before. Something really weird happened with just the structure of the episodes, where it was either a full-on filler episode with no real character advancement or anything like that, or it was a episode with story advancement, but it had a weird filler subplot that had nothing to do. Kind of just was a waste of time, and that was really weird. Also, there were a couple of moments that just felt anticlimactic because they felt like they were just anchored by the two-part formula. Like with Glada's death, I really felt like her and Lakia's rivalry could have been stretched out longer instead of just ending in 2 episodes. Longo being the final boss, it only lasted 2 episodes. So there's just some parts that really could have been stretched out longer that weren't. And I feel like it's because they were just being shackled by the 2-part formula, which kind of weird because they've shown in the past with seasons like Build and Game that they don't have to be forced into this 2-part formula. So I don't know why they had to do that here. The end game was overall decent and raises the stock of the second half of the season, especially when Boka actually started to fight Shomo. That was a bunch of really cool fights. But just the finale as a whole was really lackluster, like one of the worst finales I can remember. I don't know what it was. It kind of just felt like Shoma defeated Longo, Hanto defeats Jeep, Lakia closes all the doors and gets trapped in the granny world, and then it kind of just ends. I don't think a lot was tied up very well, like the stuff with Shoma and the next door owner. He never confronts him about his mother at all, which is kind of a weird hanging plot thread. Lizelle is still out in the world. I don't know, it's just kind of a weird ending for a pretty good endgame arc. It didn't ruin the season, it was just probably the weakest part of the season overall. Just such not very good finale. One thing that I really like about this season is that it actually feels like it has consequences, and that isn't the case for a lot of seasons of Kamen Rider. I feel like people quote-unquote die and always come back, and there's always things like Saber's ending where Toma gets trapped in the Wonder World but can just come back willy-nilly whenever he feels like, so there's no real consequence for him sacrificing himself. Here there's actually consequences. Characters who die stay dead, which I probably wouldn't have expected. I kind of expected Hanto's boss to come back eventually. I half expected Shoma's mom and Hanto's mom to be alive somewhere, but they aren't. They die in the past, and that consequence lives to the future, which it's really great. It actually feels like there's stakes in the season. It makes Lakia's sacrifice actually have meaning. It feels like he actually sacrificed something instead of it just saying it's a sacrifice but not actually mean anything. All of the consequences actually have meaning, which I really like and is one of my favorite parts about this season. My absolute favorite thing about this season by far is actually the action, which I've always taken for granted in Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and Power Rangers. It's the thing that got me into it, but it kind of just feels like they're going through the motions most of the time. Like, a lot of it feels very samey, but here the action feels so new. And I feel like it's something that's been brought over from Boom Moojer, which also had really good action and innovative action. Except I feel like they did it even better here. There's so many good and cool action scenes in different locations, indoor locations, stuff that isn't just like generic rock quarry or that one city plaza that they always use. Like, I was thinking of that fight on the scaffolding. Just so many cool shots. So many cool things that they do, and every single week I was half expecting them to be less and less good over time, but it's stayed as good. It's as good as it is in the finale as it is in the first episode, which is great. And really, the one main hook that really hooked me in the season is the action, something that I've taken for granted pretty much my whole life watching Tokusatsu, and it was just so great seeing that the action is great, and I'm hoping that this new innovative action is continuing into future seasons. Now I'm going to talk about the aesthetics, which are pretty decent. I still think the stack motif is kind of stupid. It integrates into Shoma's backstory well, but when it comes to like the overall look of the season, it doesn't help it too much, but the suits have grown on me, especially Gavv and Valen, and Master Gavv is a really great looking suit. For him, I still think it looks kind of ugly, and Valen's final form don't really like that either. But another great thing is the music. The music is great, especially the instrumental score is one of the best in Kamen Rider. Insert theme's not very memorable, but the opening theme very catchy and very good. So overall, I think the aesthetics are pretty good. Very good music and fairly decent suits, though I don't really like the motif as a whole. So in conclusion, while Gavv isn't a perfect season, I couldn't have asked for anything better following Gotchard, which is the absolute worst season in my opinion, and this is an above average season. Nothing crazy, not top 10, on par with something like Kabuto and Forze. Good seasons with some great moments. First half is definitely great with Suga, some great character moments, Hanto's arc is pretty good, but just kind of falls off a bit after that. Decent endgame arc, pretty lackluster finale, pretty good villains, though not executed the greatest, great characters, amazing action, amazing music, decent suits, a very fun feel, and overall it was extremely entertaining. Even when it wasn't great, it was never bad, so I'm just really glad. This reinvigorated my hope in Kamen Rider moving forward, and that's all I could have hoped for. All I wanted was a season I didn't hate, and I got a season that I really liked. Even though it has its problems, still a very fun season, and I'm glad that it gave me hope for the future of Kamen Rider once again. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I still can't stress enough how glad I am that Gavv was a good season. You can go back and watch my Gotchard review from last year and how much I hated that season, and I'm just so glad, because that looks like it's continued the momentum that Gavv started, and I'm hoping it can be better. So as for my next videos, I already have my Evil Riders video recorded. I'll probably say that for Halloween, honestly, it feels fitting. I want to start working on ranking every single season of Kamen Rider that I've seen, which hoping to get out sometime next month, and then after that, supporting writers, and in the meantime, watch the rest of Kamen Rider movies that I haven't watched so I can make a Kamen Rider movies video, and then we'll see from there. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. Feedback is always appreciated. Have a great day.